Unlocking urban potential, proposed zoning reforms aim to reduce housing costs near transit stations by 50%. Event overview. On July 9, 2025, a significant discussion unfolded surrounding the proposed zoning reforms aimed at reducing housing costs near transit stations by as much as 50%. This event brought together urban planners, policymakers, housing advocates, and community stakeholders, all focused on addressing the urgent issue of housing affordability in urban areas. Introduction. Urban centers across the globe are grappling with a housing crisis exacerbated by rising costs and stagnant wages. As cities grow, the demand for affordable housing becomes increasingly pressing. In response, recent proposals for zoning reforms have emerged, particularly targeting areas near transit stations. This initiative aims not only to lower housing costs but also to promote sustainable urban growth and improve accessibility. Key objectives of the zoning reforms. 1. Encouraging higher density housing. The primary objective of the zoning reforms is to facilitate the development of higher density housing near transit hubs. By allowing for multifamily dwellings in mixed-use developments, the reforms aim to increase the housing supply in high-demand areas. 2. Reducing dependence on cars. Proximity to public transportation has been linked to reduced reliance on personal vehicles, which can lower overall living expenses for residents. The proposed reforms are designed to enhance this accessibility, making it easier for residents to commute without the added financial burden of car ownership. 3. Promoting sustainable urban growth. The integration of housing development with transit planning is viewed as a crucial step towards sustainable urban growth. By concentrating housing around transit stations, cities can reduce traffic congestion, improve public health outcomes, and stimulate economic activity. Potential benefits of the reforms. Cost reduction. Studies suggest that successful implementation of these zoning reforms could lead to a 30 to 50% reduction in housing costs. By increasing the housing supply, market dynamics could shift to lower prices in areas previously characterized by high demand and limited availability. Improved quality of life, with enhanced access to public transportation and local amenities. Residents could enjoy a better quality of life. Reduced commute times and access to essential services are expected outcomes of the proposed reforms. Economic growth. Increased housing availability can lead to higher economic activity in urban centers. As more residents move into these areas, local businesses could benefit from a larger customer base, potentially leading to job creation and enhanced community vibrancy. Challenges and criticisms. Despite the potential benefits, the proposed zoning reforms face several challenges. Local opposition. One of the most significant hurdles is local opposition to increased density. Many community members express concerns about the potential loss of neighborhood character and the strain on existing public infrastructure. Infrastructure investment. Critics argue that for these reforms to be successful, there must be corresponding investments in public services such as schools, parks, and healthcare facilities. Without adequate infrastructure, increased density could lead to a decline in quality of life. Regulatory hurdles. Zoning reforms often require extensive regulatory changes, which can be a lengthy and contentious process. Engaging with community stakeholders and addressing their concerns is essential to ensure broad support for the reforms. Case studies and data analysis. Several cities have begun experimenting with zoning reforms as part of their housing strategies. Los Angeles, the city has seen success with its recent upzoning efforts around transit stations, resulting in a notable increase in affordable housing units. Data indicates that housing prices in these areas have decreased by approximately 30% since the reforms were implemented. San Francisco. Similar zoning reforms have been piloted in San Francisco, where there has been a concerted effort to create mixed-use developments near transit hubs. Early data suggests positive trends in housing availability. Seattle. In Seattle, data collection efforts have focused on analyzing occupancy rates and housing prices post-reform. Findings indicate a significant uptick in available housing units with a marked decrease in rental prices near newly developed transit-oriented sites. Future outlook. As more cities consider adopting similar zoning reforms, the focus is shifting towards sustainable urban planning that balances housing needs with community concerns. Ongoing studies and data analysis will continue to inform policymakers about the effectiveness of these reforms and guide future decisions. Conclusion. The proposed zoning reforms aimed at reducing housing costs near transit stations represent a promising avenue for addressing urban housing challenges. While challenges remain, including community opposition and the need for infrastructure investment, the potential benefits underscore the importance of informed policymaking. By prioritizing accessibility, sustainability, and community engagement, cities can unlock their urban potential and create a more affordable and livable environment for all residents. The content presents a range of insights about proposed zoning reforms aimed at reducing housing costs near transit stations. While there are many points of agreement among sources, there are also counterintuitive elements that warrant closer examination. 1. Cost reduction versus demand pressure. A key assertion is that zoning reforms can reduce housing costs by up to 50% by increasing the supply of housing. However, this assumes that simply increasing supply will directly translate to lower prices. In many economic contexts, especially in high-demand urban areas, increased supply can lead to price stabilization or even price increases if demand continues to outpace supply. This suggests a potential disconnect between theory and practice in the housing market. 2. Density and neighborhood character. While it is commonly argued that increased density near transit hubs will improve urban living by making housing more affordable, there is a counterintuitive backlash from existing residents who fear that higher density could erode neighborhood character. This opposition could potentially stymie development efforts, leading to a paradox where the very reforms intended to promote affordability could face significant local resistance, thereby limiting their effectiveness. 3. Public infrastructure strain. Another assumption is that increasing housing density will not significantly strain public infrastructure and services. However, communities may face challenges related to traffic waste management and public service demand, which could lead to higher costs for local governments. If these costs are not addressed, they could negate some of the financial benefits of reduced housing costs, leading to a scenario where residents face higher overall living expenses. 4. Mixed-use versus single-use developments. The push for mixed-use developments is based on the premise that they promote vibrant urban environments. However, the counterintuitive reality is that not all residents prefer living in mixed-use areas. Some may find them noisy or chaotic. Consequently, while mixed-use developments can boost diversity and accessibility, they might not appeal to everyone, potentially limiting their attractiveness and effectiveness in reducing housing costs. 5. Investment in public services. The assumption that zoning reforms will automatically lead to improvements in public services like schools, parks, and transportation is misleading. Increased housing density may necessitate significant investment in public infrastructure to maintain quality of life. If these investments do not occur simultaneously with zoning reforms, the anticipated benefits of lower housing costs may be overshadowed by deteriorating public services. 6. Long-term versus short-term outcomes. The expectation that housing costs will drop immediately following zoning reforms may be overly optimistic. Real estate markets often take time to adjust, and the full effects of such reforms might not be felt for years. This delay means that communities could experience a prolonged period of discontent if they do not see immediate results, potentially stalling further reform efforts. 7. Community engagement. While the discourse emphasizes the importance of community engagement in the planning process, the reality is that engaging all stakeholders can be challenging. There may be a vocal minority that opposes changes, leading to a situation where the desires of a few can significantly influence policy, potentially sidelining broader community needs for affordable housing. 8. Impact on existing residents. There's an assumption that new developments will primarily benefit those seeking affordable housing. However, if new construction leads to gentrification, existing residents may find themselves priced out of their neighborhoods, creating a complex dynamic where the initial goal of affordability could inadvertently worsen housing insecurity for longtime residents. In summary, while the proposed zoning reforms have the potential to unlock urban housing and reduce costs, there are various counterintuitive factors that could complicate their implementation and effectiveness. Addressing these complexities through careful planning, community engagement, and investment in public infrastructure will be crucial to realizing the intended benefits of these reforms. The report on Unlocking Urban Potential, proposed zoning reforms aim to reduce housing costs near transit stations by 50%, presents a multifaceted approach to addressing urban housing affordability through strategic zoning reforms. While the summary highlights key points, there are several important aspects that many readers might overlook which are significant for understanding the broader implications of these reforms. 1. The role of transit-oriented development (TOD). Significance: the focus on transit-oriented development goes beyond just reducing housing costs, it fundamentally reshapes urban living. By promoting higher density housing near transit stations, cities can create vibrant communities that are less reliant on cars. This is crucial for reducing carbon footprints and enhancing public health through increased walkability and access to green spaces. Overlooked content: many discussions on zoning reforms emphasize the potential cost reductions but fail to address how TOD contributes to social equity. Affordable housing located near transit can be a game changer for low-income families who depend on public transportation for employment, education, and essential services. The connection between affordable living and mobility is significant and deserves more attention. 2. Local opposition and community engagement. Significance: while the report mentions local opposition to increased density, it is essential to explore the nuances of this resistance. Community pushback often stems from fears of gentrification, loss of neighborhood character, and concerns about infrastructure strain. Understanding these sentiments is vital for policymakers. Overlooked content: the importance of community engagement in the planning process cannot be overstated. Successful zoning reforms require transparent communication and collaboration with local residents. This engagement is not merely about addressing opposition but about fostering a sense of ownership among community members in the development process. The report could benefit from highlighting successful case studies where community input led to more accepted and effective zoning changes. 3. Infrastructure and public services investment. Significance: the report highlights the need for investment in public services and amenities to support increased density, yet this point might not receive adequate emphasis. Without accompanying investments in infrastructure, such as schools, parks, and public safety, higher density developments can lead to overburdened systems and decreased quality of life. Overlooked content: it would be beneficial to explore how cities can strategize the allocation of resources to ensure that infrastructure keeps pace with increased housing density. For example, case studies demonstrating successful synchronization of housing development with infrastructure planning could provide a roadmap for other cities. 4. Economic impacts beyond housing costs. Significance: the economic implications of increased housing supply near transit hubs extend beyond mere affordability. They can stimulate job creation, attract businesses, and enhance overall economic vitality in urban areas. Overlooked content: the report might not sufficiently address the potential for zoning reforms to catalyze economic development. For instance, increased density can lead to more diverse local economies and job opportunities, particularly in service sectors that thrive in denser urban environments. Highlighting examples where economic growth followed zoning changes could illustrate the broader benefits of such reforms. 5. Long-term sustainability and resilience. Significance: the interplay between zoning reforms and long-term urban sustainability is critical. As cities face challenges related to climate change, zoning reforms that promote density and transit access can be a crucial part of resilience planning. Overlooked content: The report could delve deeper into how these zoning changes are aligned with broader sustainability goals such as reducing greenhouse gas emissions and promoting energy-efficient building practices. This perspective is increasingly relevant in the context of global climate commitments and local sustainability initiatives. 6. Comparative analysis of successful models. Significance. The report mentions cities like Los Angeles as examples of successful zoning reforms. However, it could benefit from a comparative analysis with other cities that have implemented similar reforms, showcasing a variety of approaches and outcomes. Overlooked content. A detailed examination of different cities' experiences, both positive and negative, could provide valuable lessons for policymakers. Understanding what worked and what didn't in differing contexts can help shape more effective zoning strategies. Conclusion. The proposed zoning reforms aimed at reducing housing costs near transit stations present a significant opportunity for urban transformation. However, the report's potential to influence meaningful change can be enhanced by addressing the overlooked issues discussed above. By adopting a more comprehensive approach that considers community engagement, infrastructure investment, economic impacts, sustainability, and comparative analyses, stakeholders can better navigate the complexities of urban development and create inclusive, vibrant, and resilient urban environments. 1. Zoning reform objectives: enhancing urban density. The primary goal of the proposed zoning reforms is to facilitate higher density housing development near transit stations. This objective is rooted in the understanding that increasing residential density in these areas can significantly enhance accessibility to public transport, ultimately reducing car dependency. This reduction in vehicle use not only contributes to lower living costs for residents but also promotes environmental sustainability by decreasing carbon emissions. The discussion around zoning reforms highlights the importance of strategically planning urban spaces to maximize the benefits of public transport, thereby fostering a more accessible and sustainable urban environment. 2. Potential cost reduction and housing supply. One of the most significant anticipated outcomes of the zoning reforms is the potential for substantial reductions in housing costs, projected to be as much as 50% in some cases. By allowing for multifamily dwellings and mixed-use developments, the reforms aim to increase the housing supply in high-demand areas. This influx of new housing units is expected to alleviate pressure on the housing market, leading to lower prices as supply meets demand. Various studies have illustrated that cities implementing such reforms have witnessed notable decreases in average housing prices, reinforcing the argument that zoning changes can be an effective tool for addressing housing affordability. 3. Integration of urban development and transit planning. The integration of housing development with transit planning is another critical aspect of the proposed reforms. By aligning housing growth with public transport infrastructure, cities can reap numerous benefits, including reduced traffic congestion and improved public health outcomes. Accessible transit options encourage residents to use public transport, which can lead to healthier lifestyle choices and reduced air pollution. Additionally, enhanced urban development around transit hubs can stimulate economic activity by attracting businesses and increasing foot traffic in urban centers. The discussion emphasizes the need for a holistic approach to urban planning where housing, transportation, and economic development are interconnected. 4. Community engagement and addressing local concerns. While the benefits of zoning reforms are widely acknowledged, there are varying opinions on the challenges and potential drawbacks. Local opposition to increased density is a significant concern, with residents often fearing that such changes may compromise neighborhood character or strain public infrastructure. Therefore, it is critical for policymakers to engage with communities throughout the reform process. This engagement can involve gathering feedback, addressing concerns, and ensuring that investments in public services and amenities keep pace with increased density. The importance of community involvement in shaping zoning reforms cannot be overstated, as it fosters a sense of ownership and acceptance among residents, which is essential for the long-term success of these initiatives. In summary, the proposed zoning reforms aimed at reducing housing costs near transit stations present an opportunity to enhance urban living through increased density, improved housing supply, integrated planning, and community engagement. Addressing the complexities surrounding these reforms will be essential to realizing their full potential and creating affordable and sustainable urban environments. Here are three famous historical cases that are similar to the proposed zoning reforms aimed at reducing housing costs near transit stations. 1. New York City's zoning resolution of 1916. In response to rapid urbanization and the proliferation of skyscrapers in the early 20th century, New York City adopted its first zoning resolution in 1916. This groundbreaking regulation aimed to control building heights and densities, ensuring that light and air reached the streets below. The zoning law facilitated the development of mixed-use neighborhoods, particularly near transit hubs like subway stations. By encouraging residential buildings near public transportation, the law sought to create more affordable housing options, increase accessibility, and manage urban density. Although initially controversial, the reforms laid the groundwork for modern urban planning and helped shape the city's growth patterns. 2. California's Proposition 13, 1978. While not a zoning reform per se, California's Proposition 13 had significant implications for housing and urban development in relation to taxation and affordability. Proposition 13 capped property tax rates, which initially helped homeowners but ultimately led to decreased funding for public services and infrastructure. In response, many California cities began to explore zoning reforms to stimulate housing development near transit lines and address the housing crisis exacerbated by the tax measure. The focus shifted towards increasing density in urban areas to accommodate growing populations, prompting local governments to consider policies that align housing development with public transportation access. 3. Portland, Oregon's 2040 Growth Plan. Adopted in 1995, Portland's 2040 Growth Plan aimed to manage urban growth sustainably while promoting affordable housing near public transit. The plan included zoning reforms that encouraged higher density residential development in urban areas, particularly around transit corridors. Portland sought to reduce its reliance on automobiles by enhancing access to public transportation, thus making housing more affordable. The plan has been credited with fostering a vibrant urban environment while addressing housing shortages and affordability concerns. Over the years, Portland's approach has served as a model for other cities looking to integrate housing and transit planning effectively. These historical cases illustrate how zoning reforms and urban planning strategies have been employed to tackle housing affordability and promote sustainable development in urban areas. Echoing the current discussions surrounding zoning reforms aimed at reducing housing costs near transit stations. Future outlook: unlocking urban potential through zoning reforms. As cities around the globe grapple with escalating housing costs, the proposed zoning reforms aimed at reducing housing prices by up to 50% near transit stations present a transformative opportunity for urban development. The future outlook for these reforms is promising, with several key predictions shaping the trajectory of urban living, economic growth, and sustainability. 1. Increased housing supply and affordability. By 2025, we can expect a marked increase in housing supply in urban areas that have implemented zoning reforms, particularly around transit stations. As cities adopt policies that allow for higher density housing in mixed-use developments, the availability of affordable units is likely to surge. This will attract a diverse demographic from young professionals to families, ultimately fostering inclusive communities. Housing cost reductions of 30 to 50% are not merely aspirational, they represent a feasible target based on successful case studies from cities like Los Angeles and Vancouver. 2. Economic revitalization and job creation. Urban centers that embrace zoning reforms will likely experience significant economic revitalization. The construction of new housing units, coupled with the development of supporting infrastructure and amenities, will generate jobs in construction, retail, and services. Additionally, the enhanced accessibility to public transit will facilitate easier commutes, potentially leading to increased employment opportunities and economic activity within these neighborhoods. By 2030, we could see a ripple effect where revitalized areas become economic hubs, attracting further investments and innovations. 3. The sustainable urban growth. As zoning reforms promote higher density living, cities will also make strides toward sustainability. The integration of housing with transit will incentivize the use of public transportation over private vehicles, thereby reducing traffic congestion and lowering greenhouse gas emissions. By 2035, urban areas that have effectively implemented these reforms may witness a significant shift towards sustainability with improved air quality and reduced urban sprawl. This transition aligns with global trends toward climate-conscious urban planning. 4. Community engagement and resilience. While the push for higher density may face initial resistance, future urban planning will increasingly prioritize community engagement. Policymakers will need to address local concerns regarding neighborhood character and infrastructure capacity. By 2026, we can expect more inclusive dialogue and stakeholder involvement in the planning process, leading to community-driven solutions that balance development needs with the preservation of local identity. Resilience against climate change and economic fluctuations will also become a focal point, with reforms aimed at ensuring equitable access to resources and services. 5. Technological integration in urban planning. The future of urban development will also be shaped by advancements in technology. Smart city technologies will facilitate data collection and analysis, helping city planners assess the impact of zoning reforms in real time. By 2027, cities may utilize predictive analytics to inform future zoning adjustments and infrastructure investments, ensuring that urban growth is responsive to changing demographics and needs. This tech-driven approach will allow for more agile and effective governance, enhancing overall urban resilience. 6. Policy evolution and standardization. As successful zoning reforms are documented, we can anticipate a movement toward policy standardization across regions. By 2030, best practices will emerge, and policymakers may collaborate to create frameworks that can be adapted to various urban contexts. This will not only streamline the implementation process but also foster a culture of continuous improvement and innovation in urban planning. 7. Potential challenges and mitigation strategies. Despite the optimism surrounding zoning reforms, challenges will persist. Local resistance, concerns about gentrification, and the need for substantial infrastructure investments will require careful navigation. Policymakers will need to implement mitigation strategies such as gradual density increases, affordable housing mandates, and robust public transport investments to address these challenges. By 2028, cities that proactively engage with these issues will likely set a precedent for others, creating a blueprint for successful urban transformation. In conclusion, the future of urban development through zoning reforms near transit stations holds significant promise. By unlocking urban potential, these reforms can lead to enhanced affordability, economic vitality, sustainability, and community resilience. The successful implementation of these reforms will depend on informed policymaking, stakeholder engagement, and innovative approaches to urban planning. As cities embrace these changes, they will not only transform their landscapes but also improve the quality of life for their residents, creating vibrant, inclusive, and sustainable urban environments for generations to come.